The antiseptic sting of the hospital air is suffocating. I've been here for nearly 3 weeks, and every beep of the machines hooked to my chest feels like a countdown to freedom. I miss my home, my bed, and, most of all, my wife, Kate. She's been visiting, of course, but something's been off. Her visits are shorter, her smile's thinner. When she leaves, there's always that hurried glance at her phone, her fingers twitching like she's waiting for someone else's call. I tell myself I'm just overthinking it. After all, who wouldn't be stressed when their husband is hospitalized? But today is different. It's Wednesday, and she hasn't shown up. Not even a text. I press the call button and wait for the nurse. When she walks in, I try to keep my voice steady. Any word from my wife? I ask casually. She glances at her clipboard. No, Mr. Reeves. But she did call yesterday to say she might be tied up today. Something about work. Work. She said the same thing last week when she left early, her excuse blending into a hollow apology. I nod, but my mind is already racing. Kate's job as a realtor doesn't tie her down like this. She sets her own hours. What's really keeping her away? Later that evening, I decide to call her. No answer. Not once, not twice, 3 times, and each call rolls to voicemail. A strange pain grips my chest, and for the first time, it has nothing to do with the hospital machines. Then comes the text. Sorry, hon. Got held up? We'll try to make it tomorrow. Love you. There's no hugs and kisses, like she usually adds. Just a period. I stare at the screen, my thumb hovering over the call button. I want to believe her, but something about this feels wrong. The nagging thought worms its way into my brain and refuses to leave. By the time morning arrives, I've made a decision. I need answers. My discharge is scheduled in a week, but that's too long. I call my buddy Mike, a tech-savvy guy who owes me a favor. By noon, he's sitting by my hospital bed with a laptop and a look of quiet concern. Are you sure you want to do this, Ethan? He asks, his fingers poised over the keyboard. I need to know, Mike, I reply. Just pull the phone records. He doesn't argue. Within minutes, the screen lights up with a detailed log of Kate's calls and texts. My stomach tightens as I scan the numbers. One, in particular, stands out, an unfamiliar number she's been texting and calling daily, especially during the times she's supposed to be here with me. Mike glances at me. Want me to trace it? I nod, my throat dry. He types furiously, the screen flickering as he hacks into whatever database he's using. Finally, he looks up. The number belongs to a guy named Brian. Lives on the other side of town. Ring any bells? The name doesn't, but the sinking feeling in my chest does. I thank Mike and send him off, promising to handle it from here. As he leaves, I stare out the hospital window, my mind spiraling. Who is Brian, and why is my wife so invested in talking to him? I resolve to find out. Tomorrow, I'm leaving this hospital. Discharge papers or not. The next morning, I sit on the edge of my hospital bed, watching the door for the nurse who handles discharges. She walks in, clipboard in hand, and I fake a smile. I'm feeling great, I say, injecting as much cheer into my voice as possible. Doc said I could probably head home early, right? She hesitates, glancing at my chart. Well, Mr. Reeves, your recovery is going well, but we're supposed to monitor. Honestly, I'm good. I'd rather recover in my own bed than stay cooped up here. Please, just check with the doctor. It takes some convincing, but by mid-afternoon, I'm in a cab headed home, feeling the weight of anticipation press down on me. I don't text Kate to tell her I'm coming. No reason to warn her. I need to see what's happening when she doesn't expect me. When the cab pulls up to my house, I notice her car in the driveway. Relief washes over me for a moment. At least she's here. But as I step out, I see another car parked down the street, just barely visible around the corner. A sleek black sedan. It's not one I recognize, and the sight of it sends a chill down my spine. I enter the house quietly, letting the door click shut behind me. The living room is empty, but there's an unmistakable hum of voices coming from upstairs. My chest tightens as I climb the stairs, each step feeling heavier than the last. At the top, I pause outside the bedroom door. It's slightly ajar, and I can hear her voice, soft, playful, and far too familiar. But it's the male voice that answers her, low and laughing. that makes my blood run cold. My hand pushes the door open, and there they are. Kate, perched on the edge of the bed, her hand resting on the arm of a man I've never seen before. He's tall, broad-shouldered, with a cocky grin that vanishes the moment he spots me. Kate freezes, her eyes widening in shock. "Ethan?" She stammers, her voice breaking. "Who the hell is this?" I demand, my voice a low growl. The man stands, holding his hands up defensively. "Whoa, man, I didn't know." "Shut up," I snap, cutting him off. My gaze locks onto Kate. "You said you were working late. You said you couldn't visit me in the hospital. And now you're here, with this stranger?" "Ethan, please, it's not what it looks like," Kate pleads, her voice shaking. "Really?" I say, stepping closer. "Because it looks like you're entertaining some guy while your husband is fighting to get better." The man mutters something about leaving and starts toward the door, but I block his path. "Not so fast. You don't get to walk out of here without explaining yourself." He hesitates, then glances at Kate, who looks like she's on the verge of tears. "Look, man, I didn't know she was married. I swear." I narrow my eyes. "You didn't know? Or you didn't care?" He doesn't answer. I step aside, letting him pass, but not before I memorize his face. I'll deal with him later. Right now, my attention is on Kate. "Start talking," I say, my voice icy. "Who is he, and how long has this been going on?" Tears spill down her cheeks as she stammers through excuses. Work stress, loneliness, mistakes. But I don't buy a word of it. The betrayal is too deep, too raw, and her tears only fuel my anger. "You've been lying to me for weeks," I say, my voice rising. "And while I'm lying in a hospital bed, you're sneaking around behind my back. Do you even realize what you've done?" Kate sobs, but I don't wait for her to answer. I grab my keys and head for the door. "Ethan, please, don't go," she cries, chasing after me. I stop at the door and turn to face her, my voice cold and firm. "I'm not leaving. You are." Kate stares at me, stunned. Her face twists with panic, and she tries to grab my arm, but I pull away. "Ethan, please. Just let me explain," she begs. "Explain what, Kate?" "How you've been betraying me while I was stuck in that hospital bed. How you've been using work as an excuse to sneak off with him." My voice is colder than I thought possible, and it surprises even me. "It wasn't like that," she insists. "I made a mistake, a horrible mistake. But it wasn't. It wasn't serious." I let out a bitter laugh. "Not serious? Do you have any idea how pathetic that sounds? You didn't even care enough to keep it hidden properly, Kate. You left a trail of lies and excuses so obvious that even I could piece it together from a hospital room." Her tears flow freely now, but I've hit a wall. The sight of her crying doesn't soften me like it used to. Instead, it feels manipulative, like she's trying to play on my emotions instead of owning what she's done. "Pack a bag," I say firmly. "You can stay with him tonight, or wherever you want. Just not here." She freezes. "Ethan, this is my home too. You can't just kick me out." I take a step closer, my jaw clenched. "You made your choices, Kate. Now you're going to deal with the consequences." I've spent weeks in a hospital bed fighting to get better, and the one person I thought I could count on was busy breaking our vows. "I don't want to see you in this house tonight. Am I clear?" Her lips tremble as she nods, retreating to the bedroom. I stand in the living room, my fists clenched, trying to process the chaos swirling around me. My phone buzzes in my pocket, and I glance at the screen. It's Mike. "How's it going?" His voice comes through cautiously. "Bad," I reply. "I caught her, Mike. There was another guy in my house." Mike curses under his breath. "What are you going to do?" "First, I'm getting her out of here. Then, I don't know, but I'm not letting this slide." "You want me to come by? Back you up?" I shake my head, even though he can't see me. "No, I need to handle this myself. Thanks, though." Kate emerges from the bedroom a few minutes later, carrying a hastily packed bag. She hesitates by the door, looking at me with tear-filled eyes. "Ethan, I know you hate me right now, but I still love you. I made a mistake, and I want to fix this. Please." I glare at her, my heart hardened by the betrayal. Love doesn't look like this, Kate. If you loved me, you wouldn't have done this in the first place. She opens her mouth to speak, but thinks better of it. With one last glance, she steps out the door, her sobs echoing in the night. I slam it shut behind her and lean against it, my chest heaving. The house feels quieter than it ever has, the emptiness pressing in on me. I head to the kitchen and grab a bottle of whiskey from the cabinet. Pouring myself a glass, I sit at the table, staring at my phone. The number from the call logs, Brian's number, burns in my mind. I take a sip, letting the burn steady my nerves, then pick up the phone. It's time to find out who this guy really is. I stare at the phone, Brian's number glowing on the screen like a challenge. My thumb hovers over the dial button. Part of me wonders if I'm ready for what I might hear, but the other part, the one fueled by anger and betrayal, presses the button. The phone rings once, twice. On the third ring, a deep voice answers. Hello? For a moment, I'm silent, unsure how to start. Then the words tumble out before I can think better of it. Brian, right? This is Ethan Reeves. There's a pause. I can hear the confusion in his tone when he finally replies. Yeah? Who's this? I'm Kate's husband, I say, keeping my voice steady, though my grip on the phone tightens. The line goes dead silent. I can almost hear his thoughts scrambling to figure out what to say. Finally, he exhales sharply. Look, man, I didn't know she was married. She never said anything about you. I scoff, the sound bitter even to my own ears. Didn't know? You've been meeting her at my house. Don't play dumb. I swear, I didn't, he says, his voice rising defensively. She told me she was separated. Said her husband was out of the picture. My anger spikes, but I force myself to stay calm. Out of the picture? Let me make one thing clear. I've been in the hospital for 3 weeks, fighting to recover. And while I was lying there, you were sneaking around with my wife. There's a long silence before he speaks again, his voice quieter now. I didn't know. I'm sorry, man. If I'd known, I never would have. Save it. I snap, cutting him off. What's done is done. But I have one more question for you. How long has this been going on? He hesitates. A couple of months, he admits reluctantly. I met her at a work event. She said things were complicated at home, that she wasn't happy. I didn't ask too many questions. I should have. Damn right. You should have, I say coldly. If you ever see her again, you'll regret it. Do you understand me? Yeah, he mutters. I get it. You won't hear from me again. I hang up without another word, slamming the phone down on the table. My heart pounds in my chest, not from anger anymore, but from the crushing weight of betrayal. Months. She's been lying to me for months. While I was focused on recovering, she was focused on him. I drained the rest of my whiskey and leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling. The house feels too big, too empty. My mind races with questions I don't want to answer. How could she do this? Why didn't I see it coming? And most importantly, what do I do now? The sound of the front door opening snaps me out of my thoughts. I sit up, my pulse quickening. Did Kate come back? I hear footsteps in the hallway, and my muscles tense as I prepare for another confrontation. But it's not Kate. It's Mike. He stands in the doorway, holding a bag of takeout and a 6-pack of beer. Figured you'd need this, he says, setting it down on the table. I shake my head, a small, bitter laugh escaping me. You've got good timing. Yeah, well, I figured things wouldn't be pretty. He sits down across from me, opening a beer and sliding one my way. So, what's the plan? I take the beer and stare at it for a moment before answering. First, I'm going to see a lawyer. Then, I'm going to make sure she regrets every decision she's made. Mike nods, his expression serious. Good. But don't let this eat you alive, man. You deserve better. I take a long sip of the beer, letting the cold bitterness wash over me. Better's not even on my radar right now. I just want to make sure she doesn't walk away from this without consequences. The next morning, I wake up to the harsh sunlight streaming through the windows. The house is eerily quiet, the kind of silence that amplifies every thought in my head. Kate's absence feels like a gaping hole in my life, but it's a hole I'm determined to fill, not with forgiveness, but with justice. I grab my phone and start searching for divorce attorneys. After scrolling through countless listings, I find one with stellar reviews, a woman named Margaret Klein. Her website boasts a reputation for being ruthless in court. That's exactly what I need. I dial her office number. Margaret Klein's office, how can I help you? A receptionist answers in a polite, professional tone. I need a consultation, I say firmly. It's about a divorce. Of course, she replies. We have an opening tomorrow morning at 9. Will that work for you? Perfect. I'll be there. I hang up, feeling a strange sense of purpose. For the first time in weeks, I'm not just reacting. I'm taking control. Later that day, I start going through the house. Every photo of Kate, every memory we built together, it all feels tainted. I shove the framed pictures into a box and toss it in the garage. Out of sight, out of mind. As I work, my phone buzzes. It's a text from Kate. Can we talk? Please. I want to make this right. I stare at the message, the words igniting a fresh wave of anger. Make this right? How could she possibly think there's a way to fix what she's done? I don't reply. By the time night falls, I've cleared out every trace of her from the bedroom. Her closet is empty. Her toiletry's gone from the bathroom. I pile everything into garbage bags and leave them by the door. If she wants her things, she can pick them up like the stranger she's become. The next morning, I arrive at Margaret Klein's office. It's sleek and modern, with floor-to-ceiling windows that overlook the city. The receptionist greets me with a smile and leads me into Margaret's office. She's a sharp-looking woman in her 40s, with piercing eyes that seem to see right through me. Ethan Reeves, she says, extending a hand. That's me, I reply, shaking her hand. Have a seat, she says, gesturing to the chair across from her desk. Why don't you start from the beginning? I take a deep breath and lay it all out. The hospital stay, the lies, the other man. Margaret listens intently, jotting down notes as I speak. When I finish, she leans back in her chair. You have a strong case for divorce, she says. Adultery, betrayal, emotional distress. It's all there. The question is, how far do you want to take this? I hesitate, but only for a moment. As far as I can. I don't just want a divorce. I want her to feel the consequences. Margaret nods, her expression hardening. Then we'll make sure she does. First, we'll secure your assets. Do you have any shared accounts or property? I explain the details, and she starts outlining a strategy. By the time I leave her office, I feel a sense of clarity. The road ahead won't be easy, but at least I have a plan. When I get home, there's another text from Kate. I'm outside. Please let me in. I glance out the window and see her car parked in the driveway. Her face is pale, her eyes red from crying. For a moment, I feel a pang of sympathy, but I quickly squash it. Sympathy won't undo the damage she's done. I step outside, closing the door behind me. What do you want, Kate? She flinches at my tone but doesn't back down. I just want to talk. Please, Ethan. I made a mistake, but I still love you. Love? I say, my voice dripping with sarcasm. Is that what you call sneaking around behind my back while I was fighting for my life? Her lip trembles, but I press on. You're not coming back in that house, Kate. Your things are in bags by the door. Take them and go. She looks like she wants to argue, but something in my expression stops her. With a shaky nod, she turns and walks to the door. As she loads the bags into her car, I feel a strange sense of finality. This chapter of my life is over. Or so I think. As Kate's car disappears down the street, I close the door and lean against it, letting out a long, shaky breath. It's over, or at least, I've done everything in my power to start cutting her out of my life. But even as I try to convince myself, a gnawing sense of unfinished business lingers. She may be gone from the house, but the damage she caused is far from fixed. I sit at the kitchen table, my mind racing. There's one thing I can't stop thinking about, Brian. He claimed he didn't know Kate was married, but something about his tone on the phone didn't sit right with me. If he lied about that, what else is he hiding? The thought nags at me until I can't ignore it anymore. I pull out my laptop and start digging. Mike taught me a few tricks over the years, and with a little effort, I managed to find Brian's social media profiles. His pictures are exactly what I expected. smug grins, flashy cars, and an endless stream of comments from women. But it's his connections that catch my attention. Buried among his friends and followers is Kate. She didn't even bother to hide it. Clicking through his posts, I notice one photo that makes my blood run cold. It's from a few weeks ago. Brian leaning casually against a car, and there's Kate in the background, smiling like she doesn't have a care in the world. The caption reads, "Always good to have company." Company. That's what I was to her. A responsibility she could escape from. The anger bubbling inside me is almost overwhelming, but I force myself to stay focused. I save the photo, adding it to the growing file of evidence I'm compiling for the divorce. Margaret will know exactly what to do with it. The rest of the day passes in a blur. I try to keep busy, cleaning the house, organizing paperwork, but everything feels hollow. My thoughts keep drifting back to the betrayal, the lies, and the way Kate looked at Brian in that photo. By the time night falls, I've had enough. I grab my phone and call Mike. "I need a favor," I say as soon as he picks up. "You sound like a man on a mission," he replies. "What's up?" "I need to find out more about Brian," I say. "Who he is, where he works, what his deal is. Can you help me?" Mike doesn't hesitate. "Consider it done. Give me an hour." True to his word, Mike calls back an hour later with everything he could find. Brian is a mid-level manager at some tech company across town. He's single, no kids, and has a reputation for being a smooth talker. But it's what Mike says next that really grabs my attention. "Here's the kicker," Mike says. "The guy's got a history of this kind of thing. There are rumors that he's been involved with other married women before. Word is, he's got a knack for targeting them, vulnerable types, unhappy in their marriages. So he's a predator," I say, my jaw tightening. "Pretty much," Mike replies. "You want me to dig deeper?" "No," I say after a moment's thought. "I've got enough to go on. Thanks, Mike." After we hang up, I sit in the dark, letting the weight of everything settle. Brian isn't just some random guy Kate happened to meet. He's a professional liar, a manipulator who preys on women like her. It doesn't excuse what she did, but it gives me a new sense of purpose. This isn't just about divorce anymore. It's about exposing both of them for what they are. The next morning, I wake up with a plan. I call Margaret and explain everything I've learned about Brian. She's intrigued. "We can use this," she says. "If he has a pattern of this behavior, it could work in your favor during the divorce proceedings. But we'll need proof." "Leave that to me," I say. By the end of the call, I feel more determined than ever. Kate and Brian thought they could destroy my life and walk away unscathed. They're about to learn just how wrong they were. The following days are a whirlwind of preparation. I throw myself into gathering evidence, fueled by a relentless determination to hold Kate and Brian accountable. Margaret has given me a clear direction: document everything. Every interaction, every lie, every betrayal. It all needs to be on record. My first move is to retrieve our shared financial records. Sitting at my computer, I comb through bank statements, credit card bills, and transaction histories. The truth unfolds in black and white. Expensive dinners at high-end restaurants, weekend getaways to boutique hotels, and lavish purchases Kate couldn't have justified on her salary alone. Each transaction feels like another stab in the back. One charge stands out: a payment to a jewelry store just 2 weeks ago. My stomach churns as I imagine her picking out something expensive, not for me, but for him. I save everything, building a case that's as damning as it is painful. Next, I tackle the task of documenting Brian's involvement. With Mike's help, I managed to access some of his social media posts that he thought were private. The man is shameless. There are photos of him at fancy dinners, bragging about his dates, and cryptic captions like, "Some secrets are worth keeping." He's practically flaunting his behavior. But the most incriminating find comes from a tagged photo I almost missed. It's from the same night as one of Kate's mysterious work dinners. In the photo, Brian is grinning, a glass of champagne in hand, and Kate is right beside him, laughing as if she doesn't have a care in the world. The timestamp is all the proof I need. With everything compiled, I send it to Margaret. She responds almost immediately, impressed by the thoroughness of my documentation. "This is solid," she says over the phone. "With this kind of evidence, we can push for a favorable settlement." We'll make sure she doesn't walk away with a penny more than she deserves. Her confidence bolsters me, but there's still one more thing I need to do. I want to confront Brian, not out of anger, but to make it clear that I won't be played for a fool. Margaret advises against it, warning me to avoid any direct confrontation that could backfire in court. But I can't shake the feeling that this is something I need to do. The opportunity comes sooner than I expect. While scrolling through Brian's social media, I notice a post about an upcoming event at his company. It's a networking mixer, open to the public, and it's happening tomorrow night. The perfect chance. When the evening arrives, I dress in a crisp shirt and blazer, determined to look as composed as possible. I walk into the venue, a sleek downtown bar buzzing with professionals. It doesn't take long to spot Brian. He's holding court near the bar, surrounded by a small group of people hanging on his every word. I approach calmly, my heart pounding but my expression neutral. When he notices me, his smile falters. "Ethan," he says, trying to sound casual. "What are you doing here?" "I thought we should have a chat," I reply evenly. "Somewhere private." The people around him glance at us, sensing the tension. Brian hesitates, but when I don't back down, he nods and leads me to a quieter corner of the room. "What do you want?" he asks, crossing his arms defensively. "I want you to know I'm not just going to let this slide," I say, keeping my voice low but firm. "You knew Kate was married. Don't insult my intelligence by pretending otherwise." He sighs, running a hand through his hair. "Look, man, I'm sorry. I didn't mean for things to get this messy." Kate said a lot of things. I cut him off. "But here's what you need to understand. Whatever game you're playing, it ends now. You stay out of my life, and you stay out of hers. If I see you anywhere near either of us again, you'll regret it." Brian's expression shifts from guilt to annoyance. "I get it. You're angry. But don't try to pin all of this on me. Kate made her own choices. And so did you," I snap. "But now, those choices have consequences." Without waiting for a response, I turn and walk away, my pulse racing. The encounter didn't give me the satisfaction I hoped for, but it reaffirmed my resolve. Brian and Kate may have underestimated me, but they're about to learn just how far I'm willing to go to take my life back. The confrontation with Brian lingers in my mind long after I leave the networking event. His smug attitude, his attempt to deflect responsibility, it all fuels the fire burning inside me. But as I drive home, I remind myself that this isn't just about him or even about Kate. This is about reclaiming my dignity, my life, and everything they tried to take from me. The next day, Margaret calls with updates on the divorce proceedings. "Ethan, with the evidence you've provided, we can leverage a solid case for infidelity. That, combined with financial misconduct, using joint funds for her affair, puts us in a strong position." Her words are reassuring, but they don't erase the lingering pain. "What's the next step?" I ask. "We'll serve her the papers. She'll have 30 days to respond. After that, we'll push for mediation. If she refuses, we'll take it to court." I thank her and hang up, knowing that the first major move is about to happen. That night, I finally allow myself a small sense of closure. Kate is officially on notice, and there's no turning back. But my sense of relief doesn't last long. 2 days later, Kate shows up at the house unannounced. I hear the knock on the door and hesitate before answering. When I open it, she's standing there with puffy eyes and a pleading expression. "Ethan," she starts, her voice shaky. "Can we talk? Please." I step outside, closing the door behind me. "There's nothing left to say, Kate." She flinches at the coldness in my tone, but presses on. "I know I've hurt you. I know I've made mistakes, terrible mistakes, but I don't want to lose you. I want to fix this." I laugh bitterly, shaking my head. "Fix this? You think you can fix this with an apology? Kate, you didn't just break our marriage, you shattered it." Tears stream down her face as she steps closer. "I was lost, Ethan. I didn't know how to handle everything. Your illness, the fear of losing you. I made stupid, selfish choices, but I never stopped loving you." "Stop," I say firmly, holding up a hand. "You don't get to use my hospital stay as an excuse for what you did. I was the one lying in a bed, wondering if I'd even make it out. And you were out with him. Her lips tremble, but she doesn't respond. I can see the weight of her guilt, but it doesn't soften my resolve. Here's what's going to happen, I continue. You'll get the divorce papers soon. Sign them, and we can both move on. That's the best I can offer. But Ethan, she starts, reaching for my hand. I pull back. It's over, Kate. Accept it. Her shoulders slump, and for a moment, I think she might actually leave. But then her expression hardens. You think you're punishing me, but you're only hurting yourself. We can still be happy if you just let us try. Goodbye, Kate, I say, stepping back inside and closing the door. Her muffled sobs on the porch echo in my ears, but I force myself to block them out. She made her choices, and now she has to live with them. Over the next week, the wheels of justice start turning. Margaret confirms that Kate has been served the papers, and I feel a small sense of victory knowing that the process is underway. But there's still one unresolved thread that I can't let go of, Brian. I've stayed away since our confrontation, but something about him doesn't sit right. Margaret has advised me to steer clear of him, but my gut tells me there's more to uncover. I reach out to Mike again, asking for one last favor. Can you dig deeper into Brian? I ask. I need to know if there's anything else I should be aware of. Mike hesitates. You sure about this? You've already got plenty of ammo for the divorce. I'm sure, I say. I just have a feeling there's more to this guy. Reluctantly, Mike agrees, and 2 days later, he calls with news. You're not going to believe this, he says. Brian has a history of shady business deals. He's been sued for fraud twice, and there are whispers about him blackmailing a former boss. It's not just personal, it's professional. This guy's trouble. The pieces start to click into place. Brian isn't just a manipulator. He's a con artist. And he picked Kate not just because she was vulnerable, but because she could be useful to him. Send me everything you've got, I tell Mike. It's time to take this to the next level. Mike sends over the files on Brian later that evening. As I sift through the documents, the picture becomes clearer. Brian is a professional manipulator, someone who thrives on exploiting others for personal gain. The lawsuits, the fraud allegations, and even a few buried police reports paint the story of a man who's left a trail of destruction wherever he goes. I forward everything to Margaret, adding a note. This guy isn't just bad news, he's dangerous. Can we use this? Her reply comes quickly. Absolutely. If Brian's character comes into question, it could further validate your claims of financial misconduct and infidelity. This could turn the tide entirely in your favor. That night, as I lie in bed, my mind races with possibilities. Brian's history of deceit and Kate's betrayal are intertwined in a way that feels almost poetic. They thought they could outsmart me, but now, I hold the upper hand. The following day, Margaret calls with a new development. Ethan, I've reviewed the additional evidence on Brian. We're going to use this to request a subpoena for his financial records. If he's used Kate or your joint assets in any of his schemes, it'll strengthen your case even more. I feel a surge of vindication. Do it, I say. Whatever it takes. The wheels of justice turn slowly, but with Margaret at the helm, they're relentless. Over the next few weeks, subpoenas are filed, records are reviewed, and Kate's carefully constructed lies begin to unravel. The financial trail reveals that she wasn't just complicit in Brian's schemes. She funded some of them using money from our shared accounts. The evidence is damning. Margaret and I meet to review the findings, her confidence palpable. With this, she says, sliding a thick file across the table, Kate will have no choice but to settle. If she fights us in court, she risks losing everything. The thought of Kate squirming under the weight of her own mistakes brings me a grim sense of satisfaction. But there's still one loose end I need to tie up, Brian. Against Margaret's advice, I decide to pay him one final visit. This time, I'm not looking for a confrontation. I want to make it crystal clear that his games are over. I find him at the same bar where we first spoke, holding court as usual. When he sees me, his confident demeanor falters, but he quickly recovers, offering a smug grin. Ethan, he says, raising his glass. Back for another chat? I sit across from him, my expression steely. This isn't a chat, Brian. This is a warning. He leans back, feigning nonchalance. Oh, a warning? I'm all ears. I know who you are, I say evenly. I know about the fraud, the lawsuits, the blackmail. And now, thanks to you, Kate's in a world of legal trouble. You've left a trail of destruction everywhere you've been. But this is where it ends. Brian's grin fades. You think you can scare me with a few accusations? No, I reply. I don't need to scare you. I've already handed everything to my lawyer. If you've used Kate, or me, in any of your schemes, it's all going to come out in court. And trust me, you don't want that. For the first time, I see a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. He leans forward, his voice dropping to a low hiss. You think you're better than me, don't you? But let me tell you something. You're just another pawn in this game. Kate came to me because she was tired of you, tired of your boring life. You didn't lose her. I took her. His words sting, but I refuse to let him see it. I stand, fixing him with a cold glare. You didn't take anything, Brian. You just showed me who she really is. And now, I'm taking everything back. As I walk out of the bar, I feel a strange sense of closure. Brian's arrogance may not have wavered, but he knows the walls are closing in. With the evidence Margaret has and the legal proceedings underway, his carefully constructed facade is about to crumble. Back at home, I pour myself a drink and sit by the window, watching the city lights flicker in the distance. This isn't the life I planned, but for the first time in weeks, I feel like I'm finally taking control of my story. Kate and Brian thought they could destroy me, but they underestimated one thing: my resolve. Weeks pass, and the divorce proceedings inch closer to their conclusion. Margaret keeps me updated regularly, each meeting revealing new cracks in Kate's defense. Her financial misconduct, her involvement with Brian, and the lies she told to cover it all up are proving to be her undoing. The weight of the evidence we've compiled leaves little room for her to fight back. Then, one evening, Margaret calls with an urgent update. Ethan, we've received a settlement proposal from Kate's lawyer. I sit up straighter, my pulse quickening. What does she want? It's a mixed bag, Margaret replies. She's willing to forego spousal support, but she's requesting a significant portion of your shared assets, more than I think she deserves, given the circumstances. I feel a surge of anger, but force myself to stay calm. What do you recommend? We counter with a reduced offer, she says. With the evidence we have, we can argue that her financial behavior was reckless and detrimental. She'll still walk away with something, but far less than what she's asking for. Do it, I say without hesitation. I'm not letting her walk away with more than she deserves. The next few days are tense as we await her response. I throw myself into work, trying to keep my mind off the impending showdown. But no matter how busy I keep myself, the betrayal still lingers, a constant shadow in the back of my mind. Finally, the call comes. Margaret's voice is calm but firm. She's accepted the counteroffer. A wave of relief washes over me, tempered by the bittersweet reality of what this means. The divorce is nearly finalized, but the emotional scars will take much longer to heal. There's one more thing, Margaret adds. Brian's legal troubles are catching up to him. A former colleague of his has come forward with new allegations of fraud. It looks like he's going to be facing charges. This news brings a grim smile to my face. Good. He deserves it. As the legal battles wind down, I begin to focus on rebuilding my life. The house feels emptier than ever, but I take small steps to make it my own again. I replace the photos on the walls with new ones, friends, family, moments that remind me of who I am outside of this nightmare. One afternoon, as I'm organizing my office, I come across a small box tucked away in the corner. Inside are mementos from my time with Kate, concert tickets, postcards, little notes we used to leave each other. For a moment, I feel a pang of nostalgia, but it's quickly overshadowed by the weight of what she did. I carry the box to the backyard fire pit and set it down. One by one, I feed the contents into the flames, watching as the memories burn away. It's not a perfect solution, but it feels like a necessary step toward closure. As the ashes settle, I make a decision. I won't let this betrayal define me. Kate and Brian may have taken something from me, but they didn't take everything. I still have my health, my friends, and my future, and I'm determined to make the most of it. The day the divorce is finalized, Margaret calls to congratulate me. It's done, she says. You're officially free. The words hit me harder than I expect. For the first time in months, I feel a sense of liberation, as though a weight I didn't realize I was carrying has been lifted. I thank Margaret for everything she's done and hang up, allowing myself a moment to breathe. That evening, I meet Mike for a drink. We toast to new beginnings, and for the first time in a long time, I feel a glimmer of hope. The road ahead won't be easy, but I know now that I'm strong enough to face it. The days following the finalization of the divorce are a strange mix of relief and uncertainty. On one hand, I feel unshackled, like a prisoner finally stepping out of a cell. On the other, there's an emptiness, a void where my marriage used to be. But I remind myself that rebuilding is a process, and every day is a step forward. Mike keeps me busy, pulling me into outings and introducing me to new people. One evening, as we're sitting in a local bar, he brings up something I hadn't considered. You ever think about seeing someone new? He asks, swirling his drink. I laugh bitterly. After everything with Kate? Not a chance. Fair enough, he says, nodding. But don't let her ruin the idea of love for you, man. Not every woman's like that. I shrug, not ready to entertain the idea. For now, my focus is on myself, fixing what's broken, rediscovering who I am outside of being Kate's husband. It's a daunting task, but one I'm determined to tackle. One afternoon, I decide to return to something I'd abandoned during my marriage, painting. I dig out my old supplies from the garage, set up a makeshift studio in the spare room, and lose myself in the process. The act of creating, of channeling my emotions into something tangible, feels cathartic. It doesn't erase the pain, but it gives it a purpose. As the weeks turn into months, the pieces of my life start falling back into place. The house no longer feels like a monument to what was lost, but a blank canvas for what's to come. I make small changes, repainting the walls, rearranging furniture, until it feels like mine again. One day, while sorting through some old files, I come across the final divorce settlement. It's a stark reminder of how far I've come. Kate walked away with less than she hoped for, and Brian's ongoing legal troubles mean he's likely paying for his mistakes in more ways than one. Knowing that they're facing the consequences of their actions brings a sense of closure. But the true closure comes unexpectedly. One evening, as I'm sitting on the back porch with a beer, my phone buzzes with a message from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I open it. Ethan, it's Kate. I know I don't deserve it, but I wanted to say I'm sorry. For everything. I hope you're doing okay. For a moment, I consider ignoring it. But then I type a short reply. I'm fine. I hope you are too. I don't know if it's forgiveness, exactly, but it feels like the final chapter of a book I'm ready to close. Her reply never comes, and I don't need it to. The silence is its own kind of peace. In the following months, I throw myself into work, hobbies, and reconnecting with old friends. Slowly but surely, I start to feel like myself again, like a version of me that's stronger, wiser, and more resilient. One evening, as I'm finishing a painting, my phone buzzes again. This time, it's Mike. Hey man, you up for a hike this weekend? Got a group going. Should be fun. Yeah, I say, smiling. Count me in. The next morning, as I lace up my boots and step outside, I feel a renewed sense of purpose. The sun is shining, the air is crisp, and for the first time in a long time, I'm excited for what's ahead. The hike turns out to be exactly what I need. Mike's group is a mix of friends and acquaintances, all of them easygoing and welcoming. The trail winds through a lush forest, sunlight streaming through the canopy above. The physical exertion, combined with the camaraderie, feels like a cleansing ritual, each step taking me further from the shadows of my past. By the time we reach the summit, the group settles on a rocky outcrop overlooking a sprawling valley. The view is breathtaking, and for the first time in months, I feel a deep sense of calm. As I sit on the edge of the rock, taking it all in, a woman from the group approaches and sits nearby. Beautiful, isn't it? She says, gesturing toward the horizon. I glance over, noticing her for the first time. She's got an easy smile and kind eyes, the kind that put you at ease instantly. Yeah, I reply. It really is. We chat for a while. Her name is Sarah, and I learn she's a graphic designer who recently moved to the area. She's funny, smart, and refreshingly down to earth. There's no pretense, no hidden agenda, just a genuine person enjoying the moment. As the group heads back down the trail, Sarah and I end up walking together, our conversation flowing effortlessly. By the time we reach the parking lot, she offers me her number. "No pressure," she says with a smile. "But if you ever want to grab coffee or go on another hike, let me know." I hesitate for a moment, the weight of my recent past tugging at me. But then I take the slip of paper and nod. "Thanks, Sarah. I might just take you up on that." Over the next few days, I find myself thinking about Sarah more than I expected. There's something about her that feels different, untainted by the complications I've grown so accustomed to. Eventually, I muster the courage to send her a text. "Hey, Sarah, it's Ethan from the hike. Coffee still on the table?" Her reply comes almost immediately. "Absolutely. When and where?" We meet at a cozy cafe downtown a few days later. The conversation is easy, and for the first time in a long while, I find myself laughing, not out of politeness or obligation, but because I genuinely enjoy her company. She tells me about her work, her love for the outdoors, and her favorite places in the city. I share a bit about myself, carefully sidestepping the heavier parts of my story. As the afternoon stretches on, I realize I haven't thought about Kate or Brian once. It's a small victory, but a meaningful one. When we part ways, Sarah smiles and says, "Let's do this again sometime." I agree, and as I walk back to my car, I feel a flicker of something I thought I'd lost: hope. Over the next few weeks, Sarah and I meet up a few more times. Each outing feels like a step forward, a reminder that life doesn't end with betrayal. Slowly but surely, I start to believe in the possibility of happiness again. One evening, after a particularly good day, Mike calls to check in. "So, how's the post-Kate era treating you?" he asks, his tone teasing but genuine. "Better than I expected, I admit. I've been spending time with someone. Nothing serious, but it's nice. Look at you, moving on and everything," he says with a laugh. "Proud of you, man." As I hang up the phone, I realize Mike's right. I am moving on. The scars are still there, but they don't define me anymore. Kate and Brian try to tear me down, but I've built something stronger in their place. The road ahead still has its challenges, but for the first time in what feels like forever, I'm ready to face them head on. The past may have shaped me, but it won't control me. I've got a future to look forward to, and I'm not wasting a single moment of it. As weeks turn into months, my life starts to regain a sense of normalcy. Work keeps me busy, and I find joy in the little things again. Morning runs, experimenting with new recipes, and my rekindled passion for painting. Sarah and I continue seeing each other casually, and while we're not rushing into anything, there's a comforting ease in our growing friendship. One evening, as I'm wrapping up a painting session, my phone buzzes. It's an email from Margaret. The subject line reads, "Update on Brian." Curious, I open it. Margaret has forwarded an article from a local news site. The headline immediately grabs my attention: "Tech executive indicted for fraud and embezzlement." My heart pounds as I skim the article, and sure enough, it's about Brian. The piece details a lengthy investigation into his illegal activities, including siphoning funds from his company and defrauding several business partners. He's facing criminal charges and could serve significant prison time if convicted. A grim smile spreads across my face. For months, I've been waiting for the other shoe to drop, and now it finally has. Brian's charm and manipulation carried him far, but his arrogance ultimately led to his downfall. I forward the article to Mike with a single line: "Karma works fast." His reply is immediate: "Couldn't happen to a better guy. Drinks on me to celebrate." I consider leaving it at that, but part of me wants to ensure that Kate is aware of Brian's situation. Not out of spite, at least, not entirely, but because she deserves to know the full extent of the person she threw her lot in with. I sent her a short email, attaching the article without commentary. I don't expect a response, and she doesn't disappoint. The next day, I meet Mike at a local bar to toast Brian's misfortune. "So, the guy who thought he could have it all is finally getting what he deserves," Mike says, raising his glass. "How's that feel?" "It's satisfying," I admit, clinking my glass against his. "But it doesn't change what happened. It just feels like closure." Closure's good, Mike says with a grin. Now you can focus on what's next. What's next feels like an open book, one I'm slowly learning to write again. Sarah and I go on more hikes, and she even convinces me to join her at a pottery class, a surprisingly therapeutic experience. Bit by bit, I feel myself letting go of the bitterness that once consumed me. One afternoon, as I'm organizing my studio, Sarah stops by with a picnic basket. "Thought you could use a break," she says, setting it on the table. We sit in the backyard, the warm breeze carrying the scent of freshly cut grass. As we eat, Sarah asks, "Do you ever think about what you want in the long run? Not just with relationships, but life in general?" I take a moment to think. I guess I'm still figuring that out. For a long time, everything revolved around the marriage. Now, it's like I'm rediscovering who I am. She nods, her expression thoughtful. That's a good place to be. Sometimes, we need to lose something to find ourselves. Her words resonate deeply, and for the first time, I feel a sense of gratitude, not for the betrayal, but for the lessons it taught me. Kate and Brian may have broken my trust, but they also forced me to confront my own strength, my own resilience. That evening, after Sarah leaves, I sit by the fire pit, reflecting on how far I've come. The Ethan who sat in that hospital bed, blindsided by betrayal, feels like a distant memory. I'm still healing, still rebuilding, but I'm no longer defined by what happened. The future is mine to shape, and I'm ready to embrace it. Time has a strange way of softening the sharp edges of pain. Months after the divorce was finalized and Brian's public downfall, I find myself living a life I never anticipated. A life that's calmer, more focused, and, above all, mine. Sarah has become a steady presence, her friendship a quiet anchor as I navigate the waters of singlehood. One evening, as I'm cleaning up the studio after finishing another painting, my phone buzzes with a message from Margaret. The subject line grabs my attention immediately: Brian's trial outcome. The message is brief, but it delivers the punch I've been waiting for. Brian has been found guilty of multiple counts of fraud and embezzlement. He's been sentenced to several years in prison, along with hefty financial penalties that will likely leave him broke for the foreseeable future. I lean back in my chair, the weight of the news settling over me. Justice has been served. For months, I've carried the bitterness of betrayal like a shield, but now, with Brian out of the picture, I feel something unexpected: release. He's no longer a looming presence in my life, no longer a figure of anger and frustration. He's just another name in the past, where he belongs. Later that evening, as I'm having dinner with Sarah, I share the news. She smiles knowingly. Feels good, doesn't it? Knowing the people who wronged you can't hurt you anymore? It does, I admit, though the feeling is more bittersweet than triumphant. But it also makes me realize I've spent too much energy thinking about them. It's time to let it go. She raises her glass. To moving forward, then. To moving forward, I echo, clinking my glass against hers. In the following weeks, I focus on building a future that feels authentic. I reconnect with old hobbies, take on new challenges, and even consider returning to school to further my career. Sarah and I continue to spend time together, but we keep things light, both of us hesitant to rush into anything serious. It's refreshing to have something so simple, so free of pressure. One day, as I'm walking through the city, I pass by a gallery hosting an open call for local artists. On a whim, I step inside and inquire about submitting my work. The gallery owner, a lively woman named Marcy, is enthusiastic as she explains the process. "You should definitely submit," she says, her eyes lighting up as I show her a few photos of my pieces on my phone. "We're always looking for fresh perspectives." I leave the gallery with a newfound sense of purpose. Over the next few weeks, I pour myself into my art, creating pieces that reflect my journey, both the pain and the growth. When I finally submit them, Marcy's response is overwhelmingly positive. "This is exactly what we're looking for," she tells me during a follow-up meeting. "We'd love to feature your work in the upcoming exhibit." The day of the exhibit arrives, and as I stand among the crowd, watching strangers admire my paintings, I feel a swell of pride. This moment is mine, a testament to resilience, to the power of creating something beautiful out of something broken. Sarah joins me later in the evening, her presence grounding me. "These are incredible," she says, gesturing to the paintings. "You should be proud." "I am," I say, realizing it's the truth. For the first time in a long while, I feel genuinely proud of who I am and where I'm going. As the evening winds down, I catch a glimpse of myself in a mirror across the room. The man staring back at me isn't the same one who sat in that hospital bed, blindsided and broken. He's stronger, more confident, and ready to embrace whatever comes next. As the weeks turn into months, my life begins to feel like a story being rewritten, each chapter stronger than the last. The gallery exhibit is a success, with several pieces selling to collectors. Marcy offers me a permanent spot in the gallery, which I gladly accept. My paintings, once an outlet for pain and confusion, have become symbols of renewal, attracting attention from art enthusiasts and critics alike. Sarah continues to be a quiet yet steady presence in my life. While our relationship is still undefined, her companionship feels natural and unforced. One evening, after dinner at her place, we sit on her balcony, overlooking the city lights. "You've come a long way, Ethan," she says, sipping her wine. "It's inspiring, really." I glance at her, unsure how to respond. I had no choice but to move forward. Staying stuck in the past wasn't an option. "It's more than that," she insists. "You didn't just survive, you transformed. Not everyone has the courage to do that." Her words stay with me long after I leave her apartment that night. For so long, I've been focused on putting one foot in front of the other, on piecing myself back together. But now, I realize she's right. I haven't just rebuilt. I've created something entirely new. One day, while I'm working in my studio, a familiar name pops up on my phone. It's an email from Kate. I hesitate before opening it, unsure of what she could possibly want. The message is short, almost tentative. "Ethan, I wanted to say I'm sorry again for everything. I know it doesn't change what happened, but I needed to tell you how much I regret the choices I made. I hope you're finding happiness. You deserve it. Kate." I stare at the screen, conflicted. Part of me wants to ignore it, to let her words fade into the void. But another part of me recognizes this as a final opportunity to close the door for good. After a moment's thought, I type a brief response. "Kate, I appreciate the apology. I've moved on, and I hope you can too. Take care. Ethan." As I hit send, I feel a surprising sense of peace. The chapter with Kate and Brian is finally closed, not with anger or revenge, but with quiet resolution. That evening, I meet Sarah for dinner at a small, cozy restaurant. Over candlelight and laughter, the world feels lighter, brighter. At one point, she leans across the table, her eyes searching mine. "Do you ever think about what's next?" she asks. I pause, considering her question. I think I've spent so much time surviving that I haven't given myself permission to dream about what's next. But now, I'm starting to. Her smile is warm, encouraging. "Good, because I think your next chapter is going to be amazing." As the evening unfolds, I realize she's right. For the first time in a long time, I feel ready to embrace the unknown, not with fear, but with excitement. The pain, the betrayal, and the struggle have shaped me, but they don't define me. I'm more than what I've endured, and the future is mine to create. Months later, life feels like a completely different reality. The wounds of betrayal have healed into scars, visible, but not painful. They serve as reminders of how far I've come. My art continues to gain traction, and Marcy has started planning a solo exhibition for me, a milestone I never thought possible when I first picked up a brush again. Sarah has become an even more significant part of my life. While we took things slow, the connection between us deepened naturally. She's patient, kind, and has a way of making me laugh even when the world feels heavy. One evening, as we sit in my backyard by the fire pit, I realize I'm not just happy, I'm content. "You're quiet tonight," Sarah says, nudging me with her elbow. "What's on your mind?" I glance at her, the flickering firelight illuminating her face. "I was just thinking about how different everything feels now. A year ago, I didn't think I'd ever feel normal again." She smiles, her hand finding mine. "You've done the work, Ethan. You didn't just survive, you thrived." Her words resonate deeply, but it's not just her validation that strikes me. It's the realization that she's right. The person I've become is stronger, wiser, and more confident than I ever thought possible. In the days that follow, I begin to embrace the idea of a future filled with possibilities. The bitterness I once held onto is gone, replaced by a quiet determination to live fully. I dedicate more time to my art, exploring new styles and techniques, and even mentoring a few young artists who remind me of where I started. On the day of my solo exhibition, the gallery buzzes with energy. Friends, collectors, and strangers mingle, admiring the pieces that tell the story of my journey. Sarah stands by my side, beaming with pride. At one point, Mike raises a glass in my honor, his grin as wide as I've ever seen it. "To Ethan," he says, "proof that no matter how hard life tries to knock you down, you can always come back swinging." The room erupts in applause, and I can't help but laugh, a warmth spreading through me. This is what moving forward feels like. Not erasing the past, but transforming it into something meaningful. As the night winds down, Sarah and I step outside for some fresh air. The city lights shimmer in the distance, and for a moment, we stand in comfortable silence. "Ethan," she says softly, turning to face me, "are you happy?" I meet her gaze, the answer coming easily. I am. For the first time in a long time, I really am. She smiles, and in that moment, I realize how far I've come. The betrayal that once defined my life is now just a chapter in a much bigger story. A story of resilience, growth, and the power of starting over. As we walk back inside, hand in hand, I feel a quiet certainty. The future may be uncertain, but it's mine, and for the first time, I'm excited to see what comes next. Thank you for following this powerful story of resilience, betrayal, and new beginnings. Have you ever faced a moment where you had to rebuild your life after heartbreak? Share your thoughts or experiences in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to stay connected for more stories like this. Your journey could inspire someone else to take the first step forward.